There's one reason why men aren't very receptive to flirting that I don't think is really talked about a whole lot. I think I might have mentioned it in passing in this channel maybe once or so, but I kind of wanted to focus on it in this video. I think that reason is that our culture really heavily encourages repression within men around men seeing women in a sexual way, liking it, and seeing it as meaningful, seeing that dynamic between men and women as a meaningful thing, rather than just a mechanical or evolutionary element. Now, typically when people complain about men being repressed, interestingly enough, it's usually by the young women out there. Well, women in general, perhaps. And it's usually what we have in our minds is that, it's the man who doesn't want to talk about his feelings. He's sort of this grumpy curmudgeon who just wants to sort of grumble his way through life without really talking about anything too sensitive. And while that might be a form of repression, it's certainly not the only form. Now, repression is interesting. A lot of people think that it's just someone consciously trying not to acknowledge, some sort of emotion that they're feeling. And that's really not what repression is. Repression is more of your subconscious blocking your consciousness from being aware of something. Typically, it is of an actual fact, either out in the world or in yourself, which is most often associated with some sort of painful emotion. Like, for instance, someone who doesn't want to acknowledge that they're wrong won't simply repress the emotion of, feeling shame or embarrassment at being wrong. What they're going to repress is the very awareness of their wrongness. So it's not just the emotion that's being repressed, it's the whole part of themselves, the element of, whatever it is that they were talking about, whether it was a discussion they were in, an argument. They're going to not want to see that fact at all, because of course the emotion doesn't exist independently of a fact. It's a response to something that's happening. So repression, more precisely defined, is more your subconscious is trying to keep something from your conscious awareness. And the reason we have this mechanism is actually a survival technique. That a really good example, it would be childhood abuse. If you're a child and you're in a horrible situation with your parents or whatever, you can't really do anything about that. And in order to continue functioning day to day, the child can't have these extreme negative emotions that are associated with childhood abuse. So the brain, as a survival technique, basically says, don't look at these horrible things. Don't look at what your parents did. Don't look at how you feel. Don't look there. Just keep going with your life. It's a way of allowing yourself to continue functioning day to day in order to live your life. Because otherwise, when with these really incredibly bad emotions and mental states, you probably just couldn't function properly day to day without repression being there. Now, this isn't to say repression is good, but there's a reason why we have that ability to function that way. Now, all this to say, I think one of the big reasons why a lot of men just don't see flirting is because we have repressed something that is very painful or dangerous to our ability to function on a day-to-day basis. Now, let me just give you several examples to sort of have this make sense. Now, my first example is a personal experience that I think really sums up a phenomenon that we have all experienced, mostly growing up, but we experience it all the time. Now, I was at a restaurant with a friend, and there was a table to my right, and a group of girls came and sat down at the table to my right. Now, one of the girls sat down in a chair with her legs over the armrest, and her legs were facing in my direction. And she was probably about 5 feet away from me, so relatively close. But the thing is, she was wearing a pair of those incredibly short shorts. And when she sat down with her legs draped over the armrest of the chair, with her legs splayed open, I could see the fleshy hedges of her lady garden, to put it delicately. And the thing is she wasn't flirting. She was just sitting with her legs over the armrest of the chair, talking to her friends. There was absolutely no intention of connection with me at all. She wasn't even looking at me. That had nothing to do with me. And yet, she was spreading her legs in my direction. I could see her most intimate part. Well, basically all of it. And yet it had absolutely nothing to do with me. Absolutely nothing to do with me. So I am to ignore this and see this action as totally meaningless. Because of course, if I were to say like, oh, hey, how are you doing? Yeah, she would behave like, what is this guy? Why is this guy talking to me? I didn't give him any signals. But the thing is, if a woman's spreading her legs and displaying her most intimate part of herself, this action, which should be only happening in the most intimate activity that we could engage in, if that's supposed to be, if I'm supposed to see that as utterly meaningless and have nothing to do with me, a girl fluttering her eyes across the room or giving me eye contact, how is that going to mean anything at all? If the very height of intimate displays means fuck all, how is a bit of, eye fluttering going to mean anything to me? Because here's the thing is, I'm sure you guys can remember this as we were growing up, but there were plenty of times where we have been given very mixed signals, just like in this occasion, where the woman is sending out what we think of as signals. It's not just her being nice, it's her, giving off sexual signals. And we think, oh, she's flirting, and then we act on that, and then the girl's like, whoa, what the hell's your problem? I'm not flirting. What's wrong with you? And so we learn any kind of sexual signal, any kind of come hither atmosphere that she's putting out, any kind of sexual vibes, we're just supposed to ignore that because they're meaningless. And that is, in a way, a repression that we learn, because no, that's meaningless. I will be, either shamed or seen as some sort of creep or weirdo, or like she is spreading her legs, showing me her vagina, and if I'd be the weirdo if I looked, even though like she's displaying it. If you don't want someone to look at something, why are you displaying it? But it's my fault, which is why I have to, repress and not acknowledge that. And the same goes with any other form of genuine flirting. That's the thing, is that's how repression works, is once something has been walled up, you can't selectively open doors to repression. It's not how it works. Like if you wall up sexual communication through subtle interactions between, you and women, once that's walled up, it's walled up. Whether she's fluttering her eyes, giving you eye contact, giving you signals, vocal signals like, hey, handsome, how are you? Or something like that. It's just not going to register because your brain has said, don't think that, because you don't want to be a creep, right? You don't want to be a weirdo. You don't want to be some sort of freak staring at her vagina for no reason. She's just sitting there, you creep, It's walled up. And so when a woman wants to genuinely flirt with you and get your attention, it might be several days or a week when you realize, like, wait a minute, she said, hey there, handsome. Was she flirting with me? I had no idea. Yeah, that's repression. And of course, there are all the other aspects of our culture that encourage this kind of repression. Like, the idea that men are creeps for flirting, men are creeps for looking, men are a burden who ask out women. Being asked out is just such a burden for women. So of course, don't ever do that, because women hate that. The constant movies, TV shows, and just cultural products out there telling us that a woman is strong and independent when she's alone and without love, and women don't need men, and all that kind of stuff. All that leads to you shutting that part of yourself down that looks at a woman wanting you at all. Because of course, deep down, you want to feel like a woman wants you. You want a woman to be flirting with you. But if you're constantly told, no, women don't want to flirt with you. Women don't even need you. You could go kill yourself and no women will care. In fact, that'll be better off. They'll be better off if you are just don't even exist. That is deeply, deeply painful. That's a kind of rejection I don't think anybody really talks about. It's not just one woman rejecting you. That's like perma-rejection. No woman ever will want you to exist at all. Like that's the peak of rejection. And that's deeply painful. More painful, I think, than any individual woman rejecting you could ever be. And so that teaches you, we grow up in a world telling us this, and that will lead to repression. Anytime there is pain, that will lead to repression. And when it comes to men feeling wanted or appreciated or desired, there is really only pain in the modern arena, in the modern dating world. Well, I hope this video has been interesting for you. Like the video if you liked it, and let me know if you want to hear more content like it, or on this topic of flirting, dating, or repression in general. Well, I hope to see you next time, and I hope you have a good one.